Hello, howdy, and welcome to the Knights of Last Call. How is everybody? You may notice some things are a little bit different. For number one, I've got this strange device right here. Secondly, my shelves are starting to become stripped of all of their books because I am moving my books off of my shelf and onto the floor where I'm going to be able to use them, to grab them, so that we can go through here and rate, or at least talk about, all of my collection of TTRPG books. Hopefully everybody can hear me just fine, and hopefully everyone's doing very well this evening. It's a nice Friday. Eager and excited for all of us here at the channel. We're trying to dodge illnesses, but I'm hoping tomorrow, Friday, myself, Bob, and Aaron from the Knights, the three of us are going to go see, and maybe some of our other friends if they want to come, we're going to go see the Dungeons & Dragons movie. And the plan is for us to go see the movie early afternoon, leave the movie, mouth zipped, head straight to the studio, 5 minutes away, go live, and then give you our immediate post-movie discussion, reactions, the whole thing. So if you've enjoyed those kind of really casual Friday studio hangouts, or if you liked the Reachies video, and you want to see more of us from the studio on Friday night, that's going to happen. Now, I don't know the exact time because I don't know exactly when we're going to get up there, but you know, it's definitely going to be an interesting experience. We'll see if I hate it, or if I love it, or if I like it. We'll see. So yeah, it's good stuff. So what is this evening about? Well, as you can see, in the background of all of my streams, I have a pretty, substantial TTRPG collection. It's, I'm sure, quite smaller than some people out there, but it's got a lot of different games. But unlike a lot of maybe big game collections, mine has a lot of different games in it, not just Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, although I do have a lot of that as well. And my patrons, along with support from viewers like you who tip and support this channel, thought it would be fun if, as another series, we did Derek's TTRPG collection, ranked. And originally, I think the idea was that it would just be the systems. But my patrons, being the lovely and trolling people that they are, of course, naturally voted for us to, for me to vote to just go through every book I own. I own a lot of books. So it is my curse, perhaps, that I tend to talk too much. So I am going to be, I have a little, my stream deck here has a little timer, and I'm going to try to keep myself to just 1 minute, okay? 1 minute for each of the products of the books. Now, this wouldn't be nice of last call if we did not monetize the shit out of this. So I'm kind of kidding, but also not. If I bring up a book and you want me to spend some more time talking about the book, or you have some questions about the book, feel free to drop a tip or super chat and ask your question or ask for more details. And depending on how much the tip or the super chat is, I will talk for another couple of minutes. I have a couple bonus timers on my stream deck so that I can use those to try to keep us, on a tight ship. This is gonna take more than one session, I can tell you that. But I do not want it to take 18 or 20 or 30, like, all spells or all archetypes ranked. But it should be a fun kind of experience. Anyways. So yeah. How is everybody here tonight? Let's see what we got here. Unfortunate Pumpkin wants to know, is eager to know what we will think about the movies. None of my friends want to watch the D&D movie with me because they think I'll be too critical. That I wouldn't want to watch the D&D movie with me either. So there's that. Frosty is here. Fear the Gnome. Yes, Frosty. Welcome, 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 sir. People talking about how weird it looks. Yeah, well, number one, spring is here. The time zone has changed. The sun is setting late. So we're going to get some more light into the room. And then second, most of the RPG books are pretty dark. And so that absorbs a lot of the light and the sound. So things are probably going to look and sound a little bit different until we can get that stuff back up on the shelves. So do we include box sets? Absolutely. We are going to do some box sets. So the structure of this, by the way, just to keep things moving, I'm going to show the case of the book, talk about the book, and then I'm going to give it a ranking. S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, F tier. We're not gonna have like a Photoshop or anything like that. I'm just gonna give it an oral rating. I'll probably come back after the session and then maybe update it so we can keep a list going, just so we have a sort of a thing going. But the idea here is to kind of keep things moving along at a nice pace, right? So yeah, I think it'll be fun. And of course, as always, if something sucks or you don't like it, let me know. We'll try to fix it. We'll try to update it. This is really for the patrons. And again, I'm more than willing to waste my time with you all because you're the reason why we do any of this. So thank you again for your ever graceful support that you give to the channel. So, all right, let's get into it. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay. Here we go. This is our area. It's a little bit of a strange setup for me as well. So, let's take some use of it. Now, I've got a bunch of different piles here. I was saying this in the chat before we started. I kind of have a pile here of miscellaneous D20 stuff. And then I have a pile here of 4th edition, 3rd edition, Pathfinder, kind of 1 and 2, small press indie books. So there's kind of all these kind of, different piles and stuff like that. So if you guys start getting bored with something, feel free to, throw a tip in there and say, pull from that pile, and I'll pull from that pile. Again, we're just trying to make this fun and lighthearted and, all that other stuff. So, all right, so we'll get into it. Well, I'm going to start here with this book that is on the top, and that is this is Apocalypse World. So this is Apocalypse World 2nd edition. This is the reprint that Vincent Baker did with his wife, Migway Baker, I think is the name. And it is signed Derek, Gen Con 97. This is 2017. This is the game that really started it all. Now, Vincent Baker went back and he updated Apocalypse World to make it a little bit more, a little bit less risque. It's still a pretty risque game, but the 2nd edition to me lost. Oh, hey, we just got an adventurer. Thank you very much. I think that was Dirt Guyver. Thanks, everybody. That's awesome. I won't count that against the against the stuff. But yeah, what was I saying? Oh, right. The 2nd edition I don't like as much as the 1st edition. I just didn't think. Oh, there's our timer. I just don't think it's as good as the 2nd edition, or sorry, as the 1st edition. Dirt Guyver coming in here with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Dirt Guyver. I appreciate you. I like the robot hippo sticker. Thank you so much, and thank you, Dirt, for joining the adventure. For those of you who don't know, Dirt is a proprietor of our local game shop here, and is going to be one of our cast members on the Root game. So, since we're going to be doing it in studio live, I need, local players that I like, players that I trust. And Dirt's actually going to be part of our game here when we get that started, which is going to be pretty sweet. Here we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm just making some adjustments here. Okay, perfect. All right. So anyways, Apocalypse World 2nd edition. Apocalypse World is a great game. Obviously the tone is a little bit wonky, but it is where the Apocalypse, where this Powered by the Apocalypse engine began. And it is a fantastic, excellent book. I love the black and white illustrations in the game book. It's pretty minimalist for an editing perspective, but it is just a fantastic example of the indie press games. And for him to come back and make this 2nd edition with this incredible cover art, and it's a nice form factor. The hardbound is really nice. It's got that glossy sheen to it you can kind of see there. And again, great GM advice. Again, I like 1st edition better, but I got to give this A tier. This is a fantastic book, fantastic system. It's not my favorite because, post-apocalyptic Mad Max Waste Zone isn't 100% my bag, but I do love this game and I love this book, and it was an honor to get to meet Vincent and talk to him about the game and all that other stuff. So that was fantastic. I do buy a lot of my books from Dirt there, KC, whenever it's possible. Actually, I used to get a lot of Magic, or a lot of store credit from playing Magic the Gathering, and then I would use the store credit to buy board games and RPG books, mostly board games. But all right, what's next here? All right, Blast from the Past. It's Pathfinder 1st edition Advanced Race Guide. This came out, I think, about halfway through. I want to say fairly early in the life cycle of, I should say, maybe after the first year. After I think the Advanced Player Guide came out. Advanced Race Guide was a book that allowed you to basically build your own custom ancestries or races. It had a bunch of information in here about elves and dwarves and humans, but really the reason bought this book is because it had this chapter 4 here, Race Builder. And this really was what the book was all about. It gave you this really cool system for you to go in and use points and kind of construct and build your own custom PC races. We actually did this a fair amount. I thought it was pretty fun. I always enjoy doing it. It's one of the examples of Pathfinder books that I really love, because it wasn't just a splat book. It was about systems. It was about adding to the game, and it was about really putting a lot of customization in your hands, but in the form of being able to build your own stuff, not just take what somebody else had given you. So yeah, Advanced Race Guide. I'm going to give this like a solid B+. I mean, it's a great book. It doesn't really do a whole lot, but by itself, it's not like it's a great system or something. But it was a fun addition to the game, totally unnecessary. But they did a good job with it, and it had, of course, a killer and amazing art. And I loved most of the PF1 books. I thought they were all very good. Look at us, we're doing well. By the way, ignore this timer. I'm just testing it. I want to make sure that this. Okay, that's good. That's the bonus timer. I just wanted to test it. I didn't actually test it. I set it up, but I didn't test it. Let's see. What do we got next? Oh, all right. Fiasco by Jason Morningstar. This is the first edition, also known as a Fiasco Classic. This is, it's not a role-playing game. It says it's a role-playing game, but it's not. It's for 3 to 5 players, 2 to 3 hours, no prep. And it's got a endorsement by Will Wheaton for whatever that's worth to you. Fiasco is a game of taking a Coen's Brothers movie and turning it into a storytelling experience. It uses a handful of white and black D6s, and it's mostly about acting out and playing a story. Don't have a character sheet. It's one shot only. But what's really cool about it is in the game, there's a bunch of different, what they call settings or play sets. For example, this one's called the Main Street play set. And you randomly roll the kind of character that you are, the relationship with the people on top of you. And they made a bunch of these. Like this is called Boomtown, which is set in the a boomtown in the frontiersvilles of the West. This is Tales from Suburbia. If you want to act out some sort of crazy what is it called, like Orange County Moms or whatever that show is. This is a fun exercise in role playing and really just eating up the scenery. I think it's a fantastic and it's a fun game. I've played this game a lot. I don't know if you could tell, it's kind of beat up. I've played it at a lot of cons. I love Fiasco. I think it's fun. It's not a role-playing game, but it is a fun activity. I'm going to give Fiasco an A. I think it's a great game, and I think it's really fun. People are saying the timer sound is loud. I'll turn the timer sound down. How about that? All right. Just give me 1 second. All right. I'm moving right along. All right. So yeah, Fiasco, a lot of fun. And again, if there's a game that you want me to go into more of, feel free to tip or super chat and throw some money my way, and I'll make sure that we take care of that for you. I don't know that there's a whole lot I could do about that sound. I apologize, but we'll try. All right. Okay. Well, it's right on top, so I'm going to do this next. I kind of just talked about this, but this is the Fiasco Companion. This was a sequel to the first game, and all this does is just add a ton of new play sets to the game. This one's Fiasco High. If you want to play some sort of crazy, ridiculous high school drama, any high school drama movie that was ever made, whether it's from The Craft to The Heathers to Jawbreaker, you could play it using Fiasco High. I've actually played this particular play set a ton of times. It's one of my favorite. This is at a wedding, so just imagine like any movie with, the crazy dramatic nonsense weddings, whether it's a rom-com or, kind of a sad movie. This book is fantastic for just being full of options to improve your Fiasco experience. It's also, the first half of the book is all just about advice for how to play Fiasco better. It has an incredible amount. It has a very fun, very easy way to talk to you. It's not high concept. It uses very approachable language. This is all about how do you run a game of Fiasco and how do you make it fun. You can see here, Herding Leopards is chapter 2. It's all about how do you get a group of people together to play this game. And it's really fun, and it's got some fantastic examples. So if the first book is, here's how you actually play Fiasco, the second book is, okay, but here's advice of how you actually use it. It's kind of like the GMG for Fiasco, but good. All right. Okay, before I keep going, how is everybody doing? Is this good? Are we enjoying this? Is this fine? I don't know. This is a high concept stream here, so we're trying it. We're trying it out here. Sorry about that. Nin says this is a great concept for a stream. All right. Zerverus is loving it. KC says it's great. Sam says loving it. All right, fantastic. Oh, did I rate it? I did not. Zerverus, you're right. I did not rate it. Fiasco, I've played the playsets in this more than I've played the playsets in the original Fiasco. I gave Fiasco an A. I'll just give this an A-. It's got great advice. It's obviously not as, groundbreaking as Fiasco was, but it is a fantastic companion, very solid book. Again, it's kind of got a lot of wear and tear on it. This has been shoved in many a backpack at Gen Con, and I love the play sets and playbooks in the back of this. Oh, this one's a really good one too. Since we're doing a little bit of a bonus here. Is this one? Yeah, Mission to Mercury. So this is like, a very, this could be used for like an Event Horizon or a, almost like an Ice Station 9 or even the Thing type setting. It's very, very cool. By the way, Unfortunate Pumpkin says, hopefully the stream doesn't cause me to buy a ton of new books. If you are going to buy some stuff, and you're thinking about doing it with PDF off of DriveThruRPG, don't forget, in the link below, in our doobly-doo, we have a link to our affiliate link to Knights of Last Call to DriveThruRPG. It doesn't cost you any extra money. It just takes a few pennies out of every dollar that you would normally give to DriveThruRPG, and instead they give it to us. So just a great way to support the channel if maybe you're not able to throw us a few bucks and you still want to support us. That's a fantastic way to do this. Maybe give yourself 1.5 to 2 minutes. It seems like this is going to be impossible. KC, if I gave myself 1.5 to 2 minutes, I would go for 3. All right. Ultimate Intrigue from Pathfinder, first edition. I hated this book. It was one of the later books that came out in Pathfinder 1. It had a bunch of archetypes, which I hate archetypes from Pathfinder 1. I thought they ruined the game. They were just so much splat and bloat. I didn't like them. And it added the Vigilante class, which I think is a horrible class. I think it's silly and stupid. Yeah, I mean, like it's just, I thought the systems in here were a little wonky. I thought the social combat was not done particularly well. They added what basically got stuck into Pathfinder 2 as the victory point system as this intrigue system here on page 96, which I just don't think I don't think any of this here was done particularly well. It's a lot of words, but not a lot of rules. And I just didn't think it was a very good book. D. All right. Let's see here. John, you could take more time and just leave this as I don't know what to do. We need a filler show. Well, John, we'll stick to 1 minute and we'll see what happens. If it gets good tips and everybody's supporting the channel, then, I don't care if it takes 5 or 6 episodes to go through. It's fine. But if I'm only going to get $20 a stream, then I probably want to go through this pretty quickly. John, we got to pay those bills. The studio's not cheap, my friend. Ooh, spicy. 316 Carnage Amongst the Stars by Gregor Hutton was an early indie game. It is a very strange form factor. It's a very wide book. This was an indie darling that came out very early. Yeah, you can see here it won an Indie RPG Award in 2008, and it won the ENnie Award in 2009. This is a very stripped down, basic game that plays out a lot like Aliens, the movie. This is your character sheet. It's very simple. You have your fighting ability and your non-fighting ability. And you can see here that you your health is a mess, crippled, dead. And then there's a thing here for tracking your total number of kills. So this is, it's kind of like Starship Troopers. It's like Aliens. It is it's like a military, hard-boiled game with very minimal rules, and it's kind of an incredible experience. I thought the game's a little clunky because it was early, but it is a darling. Oh, someone said it's 2008 early. Callie Marcus, for the indie game movement, Callie. Obviously, D&D came out in the 1970s. You know, I've been playing D&D since the 80s. But, you know, during the mid-2000s, you really started to see this explosion in the indie game movement. And like I said, this was, I think, one of the first games to ever win the Indie RPG award, because it literally just was not created until around that time. So it won a bunch of awards. It's fun. It's very short, 96 pages, and they're pretty small. And again, if you like Starship Troopers or Aliens or any of that stuff, it's pretty cool. I am going to give this... I'm going to give this a B. I think it's a fun game. All right. Abomination Vaults. Pathfinder, 2nd edition. This is an adventure path. I'm not going to go through too much because it might be a spoiler. But Paizo calls this a mega dungeon. It's not. But it's a big dungeon as far as Paizo is concerned. 10 levels, 1 through 10, with 10 levels of adventure. It's got a very solid villain who you're introduced to early. You have an opportunity to interact with her through haunts and through this kind of cool ghost mechanic. I think it's a very solid game, very sandboxy for Pathfinder 2. The maps are way too small. Spoiler alert, this is the first floor. I think you should double the size of all the rooms and all of the chambers in all of these maps. They're way too small. That being said, I thought now we did not finish this. We played through the first 5 levels or so, but I enjoyed them. I thought it was a great dungeon. I thought the encounters were interesting. I thought the presentation was good. I thought the themes of the levels were great. A. I thought it was good. I think it's a fantastic game, a fantastic adventure. All right, a game that I apparently picked up secondhand. It's Exalted. So Exalted was White Wolf, you know, the people who make vampire and werewolf. It was their attempt to do sort of heroic, over-the-top fantasy, and you know, instead of just being like evil, instead of being evil vampires all the time. Exalted is a pretty cool system. I got to be honest with you. It's kind of high powered, but again, it's got a lot of the things I liked about the, you know, storytelling system from White Wolf. But it does it in an interesting way. It has an extremely evocative setting with some really, really interesting characters. It's a really mature take on fantasy. And like Vampire the Masquerade, you can build some pretty busted characters that are, well, quite frankly, pretty powerful and pretty broken. But it is a very, very interesting game. And, you know, again, I'm not going to go too much into it, but, you know, this is everything you need to make a character. You know, you get points that you put into abilities and dots, just like you do with Vampire or Werewolf. And I thought this was a fantastic system. I will be honest with you. I have never played this system. I've only read it. I think I've had some conversations about it, but it was never one that really made it to our table. But I think the game is very solid. And if you like Vampire, I'm going to give it a C. I see some questions in chat again, trying to avoid answering too many questions because that always gets me slowed down. Why did we stop playing AV? Honestly, Figment's World, because of the channel. We were playing Pathfinder 2 in the channel as well as playing Pathfinder 2 in our home game, and it was just I was just playing too much Pathfinder 2. I wanted to change it up and not just be GMing so many games of Pathfinder 2 each week. So that's kind of why we finished it or stopped that. Was that 2nd edition Exalted? Yes, I believe that was 2nd edition Exalted. No, Frosty, we stopped playing Rise of the Rune Lords because of a TPK. JG says Exalted is incredibly cool in theory, but a little bit kludgy to play. And I could feel that. And that's why, again, I feel confident giving it a C. Joe, I have not ranked Earthdawn yet. All right, we got a 4th edition book here. This is Vor Rukoth, an ancient ruins adventure site. They did 2 of these, I think, for 4th edition. It's very small. It's just a little pamphlet sized. Inside is a layout map and a book. Now note, this says an ancient ruins adventure site. Apparently this was going to be a whole thing that they were going to do. They did another one, I think, called Hammerfall. And the whole idea of this little book here, which is only 31 pages long, is it's not a module. It is just ideas for how you would use this ancient tiefling city, which is what this is, by the way. It's an abandoned and ruined tiefling city called Vor Rukoth. And it's got all these different sort of areas of the city. And inside the book is just ideas. It's got factions. It has kind of NPCs. It has adventure seeds. It has, you know, it does have some like monsters and stats, but it's not an adventure. It's not an adventure at all. It's more of just like, here's a bunch of cool ideas or cool encounters or cool locations. And it's kind of tied together in this idea of the ancient tiefling city of Vor Rukoth, and, you know, use it and as a basis to create adventures. Let me tell you something. I've read this cover to cover many times. It is awesome. It is amazing. The book itself is great, but the format is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And it's short. It was short and it was cheap. I wish this is what people did. And I'd rather buy these all day than adventures. I think these are incredible and evocative and compelling. And I'm going to give this an S tier, not just because I thought it was done really well, and it is. It's the history of this city and this cool. Again, it's not a city like Waterdeep. It's an ancient ruins adventure site. It's designed to be explored and kind of beaten in a reasonable amount of time. But just the concept of it was just so cool, and I loved that they did these. And then obviously, just another example of 4th edition doing something amazing and awesome, and then they threw the baby out with the bathwater, and we never got to see it again. So, oh well. Okay, from 4th edition to Swords and Wizardry. So Swords and Wizardry was a retro clone, one of the earlier retro clones. But unlike Osric, which was a retro clone of 1st edition D&D, Swords and Wizardry is a retro clone of original D&D, OD&D, 1974 D&D. And this was one of the early retro clones where they really did not try to change a whole lot. It really is kind of a sort of a reprint of basically the of the game. But yeah, it's pretty cool. This, if you like original school D&D, of course nowadays when they printed these, it's because these things weren't in print. I don't really like old school D&D like this too much. I just don't really see the value of this anymore as much. I'd like to see some innovation. If I want to play this, I will just go play, old school D&D. I would just actually play it. And unlike old school Essentials, the formatting here is nothing to really write home about, right? It's just a lot of lines of text and attack tables and assassination tables, and it's kind of hard to read. So sorry, Swords and Wizardry, you get a D from me. Sorry. No, it's not bad. It's just it's not what I want to do. All right, up next, Monster of the Week. I think this is 1st edition. Might be 2nd edition. I think it's 1st edition. There's 2 editions. I think there's a 3rd edition now being printed. Monster of the Week is an early Powered by the Apocalypse game that came out shortly. It came out like the 2 years after D. Vincent Baker released Apocalypse World. Along with Dungeon World, this was one of the bedrock games that sort of solidified Monster of Powered by the Apocalypse as being a powerhouse. Now, it has all the problems that early Apocalypse World games have, which is the moves are all pretty aged and dated. And honestly, I'm kind of disappointed that Michael Sands hasn't updated the game more. People like Magpie are doing Powered by the Apocalypse games a lot better these days. That being said, Monster of the Week delivers on the tropes of a Buffy the Vampire Slayer or a Supernatural or any of those sort of Monster of the Week, X-Files, teen, super Scooby Gang beating down the monsters. The playbooks in this book, aka the classes, are just so locked in on the tropes that you would see from these shows. You read this and you go, oh, that's Willow. Oh, that's Buffy. Oh, that's Giles. Oh, that's Xander. Like, you just see, oh, that's Spike or Angel or maybe even Oz. Like, you just see these things and you go, okay, I get it. I know how to play this game. And everybody's watched these games and everybody's watched these shows. And it's a classic for a reason. And, again, I think that the rules are a little dated because, again, they are doing things with Powered by the Apocalypse now, which are incredible. But it was still a fantastic game at the time. I wish they could have updated the things more. I am going to give this a C. I'm going to give it a C. It's fine, but it's not great. It's not like over the top great. A newer purchase. This is Adventures in Rokugan by Edge Studios. This is a 5th edition, as in 5th edition D&D, reprint, or not reprint, I should say. It's a 5th edition version of using the 5th edition D&D rules of Legend of the Five Rings. They don't call it Legend of the Five Rings. They call it Adventures in Rokugan. A lot of the things I love about Legend of the Five Rings, the tension, the drama, the mature subjects, have been stripped out of this game. That being said, it still has an incredibly robust world. It uses all the same lore and history, and it has a very, very cool take, I think, on the classic samurai kind of classes, but in a 5th edition era. The Bushi plays very cool, and it's, in my opinion, like a really cool class. Like, I'd rather play this class if I was playing, let's say, a 5e game than I would, say, play a fighter or, a paladin or anything like that. A lot of the classes in this game are very evocative and they're very cool. And I thought, Aaron and I both thought they did a really good job with this. As a 5e imprint, they added a lot of complexity to the game. They did a good job of balancing out some of the elements of the world. It's a little, it's a little PG for me. They stripped out a lot of the more mature elements of the game that I really like. But I thought it was a really well done book. Edge Studios should be proud, and it's 5e compatible, so I'm assuming it sold really well. Adventures of Rokugan gets a B. Let's see. Damien did not like Buffy. I like Buffy okay. I wasn't like a huge Buffy fan like some of my friends were, but I like Buffy okay. So, Dominicus, I mean, there's also shows like Supernatural or, Doom Patrol or, what is it called? The Academy, the Umbrella Academy. I mean, there's a lot of modern takes that a lot of people can probably retrofit to that system. I mean, they are going to keep making those shows and making those books forever. Dresden Files is pretty much in that same vein. So there's a lot of stuff in that area for sure. All right. How's everybody doing? Good. All right. Another Pathfinder 1 book. Ultimate Campaign. Ultimate Campaign was a book that I think Aaron likes, but I don't recall really liking it. It basically took the Kingdom Builder rules from Kingdom Builder, and it put them in here. Okay, yeah, no. Okay, put the Kingdom Builder rules in here. It had the life path generation system. It had a bunch of stuff for downtime, and then it had infinite subsystems. Never mind. I fucking love this book. I forgot about this. Okay. I thought it was just Kingmaker. No. This had a ton of optional subsystems. It had things like, new rules for alignment, for bargaining, for companions, contacts, honor, magic item. Like, it had all of this just subsystems. It was just like, here are cool ways that you can expand your game and make it more fun and make it better. And if you want the kingdom building rules from Kingdom Builder, the Kingmaker, the adventure path, here we go. Ultimate campaign, B+. It's very good. I like it. It's a little kludgy at times, but it is very good. B+. Good book. Again, I love the Pathfinder 1 books. Like they really knew how to do it. They really knew how to do it. I thought they did a much better job in many ways. All right. Traveler Pocket Rulebook. So we are going to be doing a Traveler stream with Rick S. of the Knights of Last Call fame, Patron fame. Traveler is the hard edge sci-fi game where in the beginning of the game, you roll a bunch of dice to actually build your character. Like you actually have to see, what careers your character was and what happened to you on your career. I think this is a cleaned up version where you can't die in character creation, but this game very much for a long time was famous because if you picked a career like, okay, because you basically build your character up and you say, okay, he was a pilot for 2 years, and then he would join the army for 5 years. Then he was a smuggler for 3 years. For each of those careers that you do, you roll dice to kind of determine what skills and abilities that you picked up during that career, during that background career. But in some of the more dangerous ones, there was a chance that you could actually die, which I thought was really always kind of fun and interesting. I don't remember that much about this game system. It's a little old school. It's a little rules heavy. It's a little clunky. It's very hard sci-fi, and they want you to know how much power packs and ammo and how much warp fuel you have. It's a pretty crunchy game, pretty small font for this pocket-sized book. I don't have an immediate reaction to it other than probably I've read through this maybe once, and that was probably a long time ago. But my initial take on it is C, but I'm waiting to see how I feel about it after I go through it with Rick S. JG says it's kind of weird because of the way of developing a character like this is so antithetical to how modern D&D and PBTA games. Absolutely, JG. Absolutely. So. All right. All right, these are both here, and I think they're very similar, so I'm just going to show both of them. So this is Mouse Guard, 1st and 2nd edition. Mouse Guard is a game where you play an anthropomorphic mouse, and you are trying to safeguard the lives of your fellow mouse citizens. This is not like some superhero game. You're just a fucking mouse. A snake will kill you. An owl will kill you. Pretty much anything will kill you. A flood will kill you. Everything will kill you. This is a Luke Crane game of Burning Wheel fame. So it's going to go ahead and use the D6 system. It is illustrated by the comic artist, David Peterson. And it is a beautiful and gorgeous book. That being said, the 1st edition and 2nd edition, I hope we can show this here, are very, very, very similar. In fact, here, look. These are both page 23 from 1st edition and 2nd edition. I think it was really more of just a reprinting, and I just bought it because I love the book so much. It's a very harsh system. It's a narrative system. It definitely rewards you for playing to your character's beliefs and structures. That's how you advance in most Luke Crane games. And this is sort of a Burning Wheel light. This Mouse Guard system kind of became the basis for other systems like Torchbearer. And it is, it uses the same kind of rock, paper, scissors combat system, which is used for everything. I call it a combat system, but it's really more of a conflict system. You use it for, social interactions, for skill challenges, as well as for actual combat. It's got a very procedural style to it. Is a setting like Redwall anyway? Yeah, very much like Redwall. A little more rough, though. And in Mouse Guard, only the mice are anthropomorphic. And yeah, I mean, this is basically Torchbearer, but with mice. I think both of the editions are very good. Again, they're almost exactly the same. So I would just get whatever edition is available and cheap, or second edition if you care about that sort of thing. And yeah, I think the art's really evocative, and I think it's a really interesting experience. I've had some fun times playing this at Gen Con and Indie Games on Demand. You know, the saying that I use from this book a lot is right here. I use this for a lot of things. It matters not what you fight, but what you fight for. This is the slogan of the Mouse Guard. It is carved into the stone of their headquarters at Lockkeep. And I think it is very evocative of this whole setting and what the game itself is actually about. It's not about what you fight, it's what you fight for. Mouse Guard's a beautiful game. I'm going to give it an A. Both editions. Damien came in with his 11-month membership chat here and says, I think you'd like Mongoose Traveler much, much more. I think the book I had was Mongoose Traveler. Yeah, it was Mongoose. Mongoose. So, I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe there's another edition or something like that I'm missing. How we doing, everybody? It's almost been an hour. How are we? Anyway, we actually have 40 people watching. Hello, welcome. If you don't know who I am, I'm Derek Melinda, Knights of the Last Call. We're a channel that normally talks about RPG theory. We do actual plays. We talk a lot about Pathfinder 2. But tonight, we are actually just kind of going through my RPG collection, which I've pulled off of the bookshelf. And I am going to kind of just talk through each of my games very briefly and give my thoughts and my opinion and my rating on the game as I see it, just all me. And again, thank you to our patrons for supporting us and for the show being even in existence. And of course, if you want to support us, go ahead and take a look down on the links below in the doobly-doo. There's a link to our Patreon. There's a link to our Stream Elements tip page, as well as to our Drive-Thru RPG affiliate link, where you can throw a couple pennies our way at no cost to you. So that's all good stuff. All right. The expanded Psionics Handbook. So this is the Psionics Handbook, but from 3.5. I don't know why they called it expanded. I guess they just couldn't think of a different name to give to the Psionics Handbook. They already had a Psionics Handbook. I don't like Psionics. I know some people really love PowerPoints, which they use the PPs instead of slots. It's got a bunch of weird races that I don't really care about. Zephs and Maenids and Githzari and Half-Giants. Basically all the Dark Sun races, but not in Dark Sun, which is kind of silly and stupid. You've got the Scion class, and I'm not tracking 145 power points plus bonus. I never understood Psionics. I didn't like Psionics. And it just didn't feel different enough. I get it. People didn't like Psionics, but people don't like Vancian casting. That's fine. This is Vancian casting with points, right? And you're just putting them. MP to me is just the same problem. The idea. It's not about a resource management. It's the nature of you have a list of static abilities, and whether you're using slots or PowerPoints, you're using them and channeling points into them, and then the ability, which is written in the book, manifests. That fundamentally to me is not magic. It's a game effect. And I didn't feel like Psionics ever felt any different to me than magic. Ever. Especially in 3.5, where it's still counted as a spell-like ability and could be dispelled by an anti-magic aura. So, right, you're focusing, Ayla, on the mechanical component of it. I'm focusing on the flavor component of it. Now, from a flavor perspective, I like Psionics in a setting where they make sense. And I think I think sci-fi, I think it'd be pretty cool. I think a Dark Sun, it could be pretty cool. But when you just go, here is this whole world magic system and boom, also Psionics on top of it. It's just too much. You can't have everything. You can't just throw everything on the wall and see what sticks. That being said, the book's okay. I mean, it was an all right design systems. This was a really cool demon, by the way, the Cerebrolith. You know, it was okay. I just felt like a lot of it was like, it's like magic, but instead of fireball, it's psionic fireball. And instead of a tattoo, it's a psionic tattoo. It was just like, everything was like, and oh, by the way, it's made of crystal because it's cool and it's psychic. There's a lot of edgelordness to this. Sonic expanded science book gets a D. Gets a D from me. All right. Our first 2D20 game. Dune is one of the newest from Modiphius. And it is obviously set in the universe of Dune, of Frank Herbert's Dune. This is a 2D20 system. I'm not going to get too much into the details of that. That's what the tipping is for. But each 2D20 system they've done, I think, has expanded and grown the system. And they've been very, very smart about how they're doing it. It's a beautiful book. It describes the Imperium, the world of Dune very well. It explains how to run the games very well and how conflict works. It has an excellent system for managing the political complexities of the Dune universe while mixing it in with the amazing potential of some of the characters in it, like, you know, Bene Gesserit and, you know, Talaxu and Mentats and Sword Masters of Ginaz and Sardaukar and all that other stuff. I thought the art was beautiful in the book, and I thought its systems of conflict resolution were amazing. It's a pinnacle of design. You gotta like Dune, but I'm gonna say Dune gets like an A- from me. I think it's a very, very solid game. It's my favorite 2D20 game that I've read yet. Casey says, regardless of content in this book, the cover, layout, and art are all fucking sexy. Yes, it is a very, very pretty book. They definitely are doing some good work over there. It's an adventure. It's the Banewarrens. This was a mega dungeon by Monty Cook coming out of his Malhovic Press, which is the company he started after he left Wizards of the Coast. And let's see, what did he sign to me? He says, don't kill them all, at least not all at the same time, says Monty Cook. And this is a mega dungeon, but it's pretty short. It's not really a mega dungeon. Never got around to playing this game. I definitely read it, and I definitely stole some rooms and encounters from this to put them into other mega dungeons that I played, like notably Dragon's Delve, because there are some really cool encounters in here. Monty Cook, at that time during the 3rd edition era, during the Malhovic Press era, had a really cool formatting that he used. They had their own unique fonts and design elements. It wasn't nothing radical, but I always thought that their books were really well written. Monty Cook, Bruce Cordell, the whole, you know, Pacific Northwest Monty Cook ex Wizards of the Coast team is really good. I'll give it a C. It's totally respectable and not bad, and it's not too long. I think it's maybe like 6 or 7 levels of an adventure, so it's pretty good, but nothing great. All right, John with a $2 super chat asking, what is the best Pathfinder 1 supplement? John, it's almost kismet, sir. It's almost kismet that you said that, because it's right here, John. Boom. That's right. The best Pathfinder 1 supplement is Mythic Adventures. I'm going to give myself the bonus on this one because John went ahead and paid $2, so we're going to be using the bonus time clock. Mythic Adventures is awesome, and everybody who says that this book was bad is horrible and wrong. They either have no soul and they are unfun, or they are like the worst kind of like rules lawyer horrible person ever and just doesn't understand what these games are about. Mythic Adventures did so many things right that it's hard to put it into things. Number one, the abilities were busted and broken. Yep. You're OP. You know what? Mythic Adventures. Look at this. This is a mythic dragon, and they're like fighting it with daggers. Okay. This is what being a Mythic character is all about, okay? This is a fantastic book. Number one, I love the way that they did the advancement. Now, I'm not going to go too much into it, but in Mythic, it's parallel. Your character Mythic classes are parallel to your normal Pathfinder 1 class. And there's one Mythic path tied to each of the 6 ability scores. So there's a Mythic path for intelligence called the Archmage. There's a Mythic path for charisma called like the Marshal. There's a Mythic path for strength called the Champion. There's a Mythic path for Con called the Guardian. And it gives you awesome powers. Just awesome powers. You get Mythic points, which is a fun resource that you get to use every day to re-roll d20s and empower your abilities and just be an awesome god. It is so much fun. But the thing I love about it is it's not, spoiler alert, I didn't like Epic Level Handbook from 3rd edition because Epic Level Handbook was just 21st through 30th through 50th level. Mythic Adventures was a separate system of advancement. You would have your character level over here, and then you would have your Mythic class over here. You could be like a low-level character, but be like a demigod. It's like it's almost like Percy Jackson, right? And so it's like you could be this low-level character who then goes and does these awesome things.
King Brandis, first toe, tip $25 for 4th edition books. Use how you want. Let me know when we run out.
All right, sounds good, King Brandis. King Brandis putting a little bit into the 4th edition bonus pile. Thank you, King Brandis. I appreciate that. Mythic Adventures was a lot of fun. The Mythic monsters are awesome. The Mythic spells are awesome. Our final Dragon's Delve campaign, everybody was stunned, and our wizard cast Mythic Wish. And we're like, where he casts Wish. And we go, you can't cast Wish, you're stunned. He goes, I'm casting Mythic Wish. And what does Mythic Wish says? It says, you can cast it while you're stunned. It's just so incredibly powerful. Like, there's even something really silly. One of the classes, I think it's like the fighter or the strength one or the con one. One of their abilities is, you just don't miss on a nat 1. Okay, that's sick. I know it seems stupid and silly, but like, we just accept that in D&D, you always miss on a nat 1. And suddenly, here comes this ability that says, nah, no, not me. I'm such a badass fighter. I'm such a badass paladin. I don't miss on nat 1s. The monsters, the Mythic monsters were great. The Mythic system was amazing. This book is easily my favorite Pathfinder 1 book. S tier. This is again, and it's also a fantastic example of expanding the game through interesting systems and new ways of approaching the game rather than just here's 2 new classes and a bunch of new feats and a bunch of new magic items. It did it in a different way, and I really thought it was fantastically done. Let's see here. Yeah, the cover art by Wayne Reynolds was just fantastic. Man, was PF1 better than PF2? I don't know. PF2 won our poll from our not NCAA, but our March Madness tournament. Yeah, JG, that's exactly why I like it too. I think it's a lot of fun. And like, there's a lot of ways you can use Mythic Adventures, by the way. You could use it with low-level characters who then have Mythic ranks who could then take on more powerful foes than a low-level character could ever take on. Or you could be higher-level characters with Mythic ranks who take on insane Mythic Mariliths, Mythic Red Dragons, Mythic, Pit Fiends, and just be completely over the top. Or you could just have a couple Mythic ranks. You don't have to go to Mythic rank 10. You could just maybe be like Mythic rank 1 or 2, and your characters are maybe fated and, almost like Exalted, where they're like, you're not like a superhero, but you have this, you're a step above ordinary men and women, So that's, a good point. All right. So Will Brandis threw some money in there. So I'll go to the 4E pile. So this is 4th edition Rules Compendium. This came out near the end of the product line, which is why it is in the Essentials format. It's kind of a digest-sized book. There are no classes in this book. There are no feats in this book. There are no spells or rituals or monsters. This book just tells you, hey, the game is about to end. We've made all the errata and all the updates to all the rules that we were going to make. Here is how you play 4th edition D&D. Here are all of the rules. and we are going to describe it all in one place, and with all of the modern errata. We're even going to put in little sideboards, or I said sidebars, so that you can kind of like, we could talk about the rules. Why did we change this? What is this rule for? Why is this, rule in existence? I think that it's a very, very well done book. I'm going to go into the bonus here. And it's interesting that we have this book, which is just the rules. It's not crowded out by anything else. And I think it's a really fantastic book, honestly. Near the end, wasn't it literally the last 4E book? It might have been. There might have been like a Heroes of Primal Shadow or something. But this book is fantastic. And it's an interesting idea. And I wish that they did this more often, where they just said, here's all the rules to the game. Yes, they did do one for 3.5 as well, Damien, which I definitely have in my collection as well. I love the idea of this book. I thought they did it very well, by the way. But I also love that the index, and they went all out, by the way, the index in this book, the table of contents in this book, everything is very well done. This is clearly meant to be a referential book. There's no reader experience in mind with this book, right? It is very much just, this is a reference manual. I thought it was excellently done. And, it's kind of a very beautiful swan song for 4th edition D&D. S tier, well done. Rules Compendium, fantastic job. It was very good. It's actually very good. Here, just because we got some bonus time. Here's an unopened pack of 4th edition Urban Underdark dungeon tiles. Go figure. I don't know. I guess I just never got around to using these. I bought most of these and never used them. I thought the tiles were difficult to use, horrible to store. They slipped around. They weren't really all that useful. I'd much rather just use a pre-printed battle mat or wet erase marker on a Chessex vinyl mat. I never liked these. I just thought they were stupid. In fact, this thing is unopened because I just thought it was, I just didn't use these. F. I thought dungeon tiles were stupid. F. This one's literally unopened. Did I give RC a rating? Yes, I gave it an S tier. Unfortunate pumpkin. Yeah, these are terrible. Sure, yeah, Paizo battle mats did have those gnarly creases in them. Huge creases. These at least laid flat, so I do agree with you. But I just didn't like the tiles. I thought that they just moved around, and they were too much of a pain in the ass to set up for not big enough. Sometimes they were nice to use like the dressing pieces. Like I would never use the room, but I might use like this fiery chasm or this little nest of eggs. And I might put that onto like a Chessex mat as like a cool, like a addendum or like a cool upgrade or cool feature. All right, well, we're into the 4E pile here, and Brandis did give us that nice $25, so we'll spend it for this. So this is Dark Sun campaign setting for 4th edition. Cover art by Wayne Reynolds. And this book is beautiful. 4th edition, they did Dark Sun so much credit in 4th edition. Obviously, Dark Sun was in 2nd edition AD&D. It was not present in 3rd edition. They brought it back for 4th edition, and they did it in a beautiful and compelling way. They did it by, number one, talking to you about why playing in Dark Sun is different than playing in other games, and about why the Dark Sun campaign is different than your normal campaign. There aren't, wizards and clerics like you would have in a normal game. Second, they have awesome races that are implemented beautifully. The 4th edition system of giving characters, and we're going to go into our bonus here, thanks to William Brandis. The 4th edition system of being able to give racial powers to races really makes the races stand out. And now I get it. Elves and humans and dwarves, but all fundamentally, they're all just people that are different heights. And it's cool that they have racial powers, but at a certain point, you're like, they all kind of look the same anyways. But these are weird creatures that really do need to stand out. Moles and 3 Kreen and, half giants. racial powers in 4th edition really help these characters stand out, and I thought it was really incredible. Second, 4th edition introduced in this book themes. And we kind of know themes, Pathfinder 2, they call them archetypes now. And themes were a way that you could layer an additional level onto your class and give your character some additional components that maybe weren't the most powerful in terms of combat, but they gave you some really cool in-game utility powers that really tied you into a background or a heritage or an organization. I thought themes were really done well. It was a cool path and a very cool thing that they added to the game. This book is very short and to the point. They introduce new powers and abilities for preserving and defiling magic. They have some wild talents because psionic energy is important, so they introduce some additional psionic stuff. And then the last, half of the book is all about Athos. It's about the world. It's got some beautiful maps, tons of adventure hooks, lots of sidebars talking about how you can use this location to make your own adventures, cool maps of the cities, a little bit of the secret history behind Dark Sun. And it's just basically every 2 or 3 page spread is just another cool adventure site. Kind of like Vor Rukoth, which we were talking about earlier. It's like, oh, this is the Ringing Mountains, and here's a bunch of information about it and adventure hooks and how to use it. It doesn't go into some 400 page Lost Omen style background about every single frickin' thing about the Ringing Mountains. It goes, look, you're adventurers, okay? Here's enough to get you in, and here's some cool adventure ideas, and look, and then you're moving on. Why? Because now you're going to the Road of Kings in a couple sessions. And after that, you're maybe going to take a sand skimmer over the Sea of Silt. And here's information about the Sea of Silt and how that environment works. It's just a beautifully done book, an incredible way to do a campaign guide. It ends with information about how to do skill challenges in Athos, some magical items, and there is monsters, but that's in a different book. They decided to put that. And then even ends with an encounter or two, like a little mini adventure, using their horrible thing that they did in 4th edition where they tried to use dungeon tiles for all their maps. Anyways, this is a beautiful book. It's fantastic. A plus. It's a really great. It's a compact book. There's so much in this, and you could just get so much play out of this, and it would be very different from anything that you'd experienced before. So A for Dark Sun, maybe even A plus. John had a question about Dark Sun. He said, if you had to port Dark Sun to another system, what would it be? That's a great question, John. I mean, I guess it depends on what you really want to do with the system. I mean, you could probably use 5th edition. You could probably use Pathfinder 2, but there's a part of me that feels like there's probably some maybe grittier systems that you could use. Like I would almost love to see like Torchbearer done using using Dark Sun. I think that would be really kind of interesting. Torchbearer is a pretty gritty procedural game, but honestly, I think the main issue, John, is, and this is true for any D20 system, if you want Dark Sun to feel like a, kind of scarred, resource scarce world, you got to make sure that you're doing that. And a lot of these modern D20 games are built around the idea that the PCs are going to have access to spells and magic and, magic items and equipment. And Dark Sun kind of throws that in its face. And then suddenly maybe the game balance, especially in a game like Pathfinder 2, is a little off because you're supposed to have all that stuff. So it can be kind of problematic in that respect. Like I would never want to play Dark Sun and then characters are getting really messed up and then they spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes with a bunch of medicine checks and everybody's at full hit points. Yeah, that's the way the system works in Pathfinder 2. But to me, that would feel very not Dark Sun-like. And that's kind of maybe the part of the problem. It's like you want Dark Sun to feel kind of draining and painful. We didn't get into it, but 4th edition used healing surges. A lot of the stuff in the Dark Sun the rules about the desert and being out and being dehydrated or being heat stroked or heat exhausted would drain your healing surges from you. It literally meant you were unable to get back hit points. Like that's how healing surges worked in 4th edition. It was scary and kind of, awesome in the same way. So it's pretty cool. Shadows of the Demon Lord might work. Yeah, John, actually, it could. Yeah. Frostjack, question. I think you've said that Dark Sun wouldn't work too well in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Given that 4E is similar in many ways, why does it work better in 4E than Pathfinder 2nd Edition? The answer, Frostjack, is just what I just said, healing surges. Yeah, it's about attrition. You need attritionable resources. And it doesn't really have those. And then that is exactly what William Brandis said. Thank you. So you can see there's a reason why you can tell that we've been playing D&D together for like 30 years, right? All right. We'll change paces here a little bit. Microscope. It says it's a role-playing game. It's not. It's a storytelling game. In Microscope, you and a bunch of friends are going to go around and you're going to create non-linear stories. You basically sit down with a bunch of index cards. You kind of talk as a group about what kind of campaign or world you want to build. And then what you do is you start going around in circles and you write down, and you don't have to seek the group's permission. You can write down anything on an index card and you place it onto the table and you start forming a timeline. Now I said it's non-linear, meaning I could write down, on an index card, the city of the sun is destroyed and put it onto our timeline. There might not even be a city of the sun yet, but I'm telling you that it's going to be destroyed at this point in our timeline. Similarly, someone a few turns ago could have wrote down the founding of the city of the sun has begun. And then I go like further down the timeline and I wrote the city of the sun is destroyed in their own hubris and greed. And no one could stop you. The whole point of the game is a sort of turn-based communal storytelling experience, but you're doing it through creating timelines. You're doing it through creating a history. This is literally a history class RPG. I totally agree with what Nin says. I do agree it feels more like a world building tool than a game, but Nin, sometimes the world building for me is almost as fun, sometimes even more fun than playing the game itself. There are campaign worlds that I would love to build that I don't necessarily know that I'd want to play in, but building it is a fun exercise. And that's why I don't call this a role-playing game, even though that's what Ben Robbins says on his book cover. It's more of a story history activity. I still think it's a fun way to spend an evening. So I think it's really, really, really fun. And it's very short. It's very simple. Check out our Drive-Thru RPG affiliate link. Download the PDF from Drive-Thru RPG. It's worth a read. It's just very interesting. It's a fun little experiment. Great. I imagine this would be great for playing play by post on the Discord. So maybe check that out. Microscope, pretty cool. We mentioned this the other day. This is the art, 30 Years of Adventure, with a foreword by Vin Diesel, who wrote this. Apparently, he was the big guy at the time. So this was a celebration that came out in 2004 about Dungeons and Dragons. And it's just a cool retrospective of the entire game over the years with lots of really cool art and articles and, lots of fun stuff.
Tip $10. Talk about our 13th age MS and our Wheel of Conan MS game equals D.
Yeah, I'll definitely talk about that then in a second. Thank you, Smith. It's a beautifully made book, lots of cool art and love. It talks about the entire history of the game up to 3rd edition because that's what was published at the time. And if you play during 1st edition or 2nd edition, it is an incredible sort of walk through history, all the different the worlds. Here's Planescape. Speaking of coming back, here's Planescape. Here's there's probably Dark Sun in here, huh? Let's see if we can find. Oh, there's Dark Sun. We were just talking about it. Beautiful, beautiful work. The art by Braun, just really evocative of the entire game system. This is a very beautiful book. Happy to own it. and it was just it's delightful book. Yeah, 30 years of adventure, celebration of Dungeons and Dragons, solid A. Yeah, so Smith had tipped $10 and said, tell us about it. Yeah, we when we played 13th Age, we were going to do a 10-session campaign. We spent 5 sessions, I think, building an entire background of not only the birth of the world and the creation of the world using a game system called Dawn of Worlds, literally like land forming, terraforming, the gods shaping mountains out of the sea. But then we went into a phase of building using microscope where we basically built out the prior 12 ages of the world up to the 13th age, which we were going to play as our campaign. And I can remember so many details, and like all the players were extremely knowledgeable about the world because we all did it as a big communal activity. It was really, really fun. We did another very complex and I'll say this as a warning, William Brandis. We did another world building exercise for a campaign that never got off the ground. But we did it online. We used Trello boards, which was fantastic. It was a great way to do it asynchronous. But the problem with microscope is sometimes you go, I want to put in all of my favorite tropes about all of my favorite things from all of my favorite novels, movies, TTRPGs. And it can be tempting to want to just shove them all into one campaign world. And, sometimes we went a little too far with it. So, it's kind of like what I was talking about with Psionics. I think Psionics are cool. Psionics have a good place in Dark Sun because Psionics doesn't have clerics. And Psionics has magic, but it's almost like you'll be stoned to death because it destroys and kills and literally rapes the natural world to death. So yeah, Psionics makes sense because it's, the power of the mind and the spirit in this harsh place where discipline and iron will are the name of the game. If you're just throwing Psionics on top of divine magic, on top of bard magic, on top of primal magic, on top of occult magic, on top of arcane magic, it's like, I don't care. It's just not different enough. So yeah. Sean. Sean and Damien both said the same things at the same time, which is fantastic. They're like, wait a second, did we make a Galarian? That's fantastic. Yes. But as William Brandis says, we did it with Conan and Wheel of Time stuff. So all right. 3rd edition book, Dungeonscape. Now this book came out at the tail end of 3rd edition, 3.5 edition, and was actually one of the secret preview books. If you know Pathfinder Unchained, you know what I'm talking about. This book came out while they were working on 4th edition. And this book, if you have not read this book and you like what we talk about on this thing about building cool encounters, if you like Night School, use our Drive-Thru-RPG link, go to Drive-Thru-RPG and buy this PDF now. I don't know how much it costs. Hopefully it's no more than $10 or something. Dungeonscape is a book all about how to build. It's kind of light on how to build cool dungeons. I'm not going to lie. It's really about how to really build really cool encounters. This was the book where they first put in the stuff about having different roles for different monsters, having different roles for traps. It's really more about dungeon encounters and how to build really fun and exciting encounters in your Dungeon and Dragons game. There's a lot of really cool and fantastic advice in this book. It was instrumental to my Dungeons and Dragons career, how I view the game. S tier. I love this book. S tier. This is one half of the proto. This is sort of what evolved into 4th edition. And I love this artwork. I love it. The sort of the tiefling rogue or maybe ranger with the dual knives, the paladin or the fighter with this awesome flaming sword, fighting the beholder, eye rays streaking out. It's just so awesome. I love this art. By the way, you want to see the real thing? You want to see the real thing? Look at that. Jason Bullman. Nin, this is 3rd edition. This is a 3.5 edition book. This is not a 4E book. This is a 3rd edition book. But that is right. This book was written by Jason Bullman, aka the lead designer of Pathfinder 2, and Rich Burlew, who, if you don't know who Rich Burlew is the author of the Order of the Stick comic. So, yeah. So, good job, Jason. Appreciate you looking out for us there. We're going to take a little sidetrack here. Romance in the Air. This is a series of books that they call, I think, World of Adventure systems. They're for Fate. You can see for Fate Core. They're very small. They're like 50 pages. What this is this is a mini campaign. This is a mini campaign in one book. It teaches, because remember, Fate can be anything. Fate is extremely generic. So in this case, this is, hey, how do you take the Fate system and how do you make it into like a kind of, early 1900s, late 1800s world where like airplanes never became invented. Everybody uses Zeppelins. And it's kind of like a World War I era, very like Rocketeer-esque, Indiana Jones-esque, but with kind of a real world view. It's got information about just, hey, here are a couple different rules that maybe you could put into your Fate game. Here is some examples of skills that you might put into your game. This is a fantastic way to do things. I love stuff like this. Also, at the time, I don't know how much it is now, but I think at the time it was like $6 or $5. Very cool. You may not like it, but I thought the format of it was really cool. It's an interesting, thing. I give it like a C because I don't really particularly care about that era or that time, but I thought it was really, really well done. On the other hand, this one I give like a B to. Because Aether Sea is much more, kind of spelljammery, and it's basically Eberron Spelljammer in, a kind of a pirate world where there's magic and strange creatures, and you kind of sail through space on your, on the Aether Sea, and I think it's really, really cool. And I thought this one was done really well, and I thought it was really pretty, and they had some cool information here about your cool little spaceships, and about adding some magic rules to your Fate game. And again, Fate's already super generic. So these are really just guides rather than hard rule books. So I thought this was done really well. B. A little bit better than the romance. Aether Sea is like the 5e Spelljammer, but not a hunk of shit. Yeah, that's fair enough. I thought I saw a super chat here. Jackal Tormoon says, how about that Final Fantasy Tactics strategy guide? All right, Jackal Torn Moons. Here's a Final Fantasy Tactics strategy guide. We're going to the bonus time for this one. Final Fantasy Tactics was awesome. This book was incredible and it's amazing. I think I bought this book after I had played through the game, and I was gonna replay it because I wanted to get Cloud. And I never went back and played it again and got Cloud. In fact, I'm not going to, well, we have a couple minutes, but my Final Fantasy Tactics party is legendary amongst my friends for being bad. Like my characters were just like completely shit. And like at the end of the game, like my Ramza was just like taking all of like the broken weapons and just throwing them instead of actually using them. He dual wielded normal Morning Stars, not special weapons, not God Save the Queen or anything like that, Excalibur. He just had Morning Stars, and that's what I like fought God with at the end of this game or whatever. Final Fantasy Tactics had a fantastic, grid-based combat system like XCOM. Nobody understood how my to hit rate is affected by whether they're a male or a female, and their sign of their birth is in opposition to mine, and if it's in retrograde. Nobody understood any of that shit. But it was still a really, really fun game. I liked the job system. I liked moving around. And it was a lot of fun. time mages were broken. Can all say that, right? Yeah, TG Sid. Yes, Thunder God Sid, of course. Yes, KC, you can get Cloud. I don't remember. It's got to be in here somewhere, right? I don't remember where it is in the book. That would be amazing if I did somehow know where that was in the book. But yeah, you can get Cloud in here somewhere. I do always remember this. The final battle was called the Graveyard of Airships. I just thought that was always such a cool, just such a cool name for a final fight. Very, very fun game. And it had a cool story too. It was a little confusing, but it was a cool story. And yeah, I thought Final Fantasy Tactics was a fantastic game. I mean, the Tactics Guidebook seemed to really do me well, although I never really went back and used it, but I do enjoy the game. So I'm going to give a solid B to the Final Fantasy Tactics Prima official strategy guide. Copyrights. Do we have a copyright here? 1997, 98. There we go. Down a rank for not even mentioning clowns. I don't know where it is in the book. I mean, I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but it's not like I can look up in the index, hey, how get Cloud. I know you have to do something and then he appears for a mission and he's got the Buster Sword and all that other stuff. I know that's the case. So, very cool game. Anyways, Final Fantasy Tactics. Everybody. Hey, thanks again for all the support so far. Appreciate it. Remember, we are Knights of Last Call. If you're interested in seeing more of what we're at, don't forget to like this video. It helps us out. But subscribing, ring the bell. We'll let you know whenever we go live. We usually go lives Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. And we sometimes throw an additional stream on there. By the way, I will mention again, tomorrow, the plan is for the Knights to go see Dungeons & Dragons movie in the early afternoon. And we are going to go straight to the studio with our live reactions. And you're going to get me, Bob, and Aaron talking about the D&D movie. So if you don't mind some spoilers, and you want to hear what we think about it, check it out tomorrow. All right. Here's another 4th edition book, and I'll go to the bonus because Mr. Smith gave us $25. This is Monster Vault. This is the best monster book for 4th edition, and it came out during the Essentials. I'm going to give bad rankings to some of the Essentials books. Spoiler alert. I didn't like Essentials. I didn't like what they did for the game. That being said, in full disclosure, some of the early monster books for 4th edition had some math issues, okay? They didn't fully understand how much damage things should be doing and how powerful things should be doing, and they fixed the math, okay? Now, there's 2 ways you could look at this. One is, they should have got it right the first time. Well, yeah, I agree, they should have, but they didn't. I'm sorry to say. Didn't make it unplayable. It didn't. It didn't make it unplayable. But by the time they got to Monster Manual 3, they really understood what the math was doing. Monster Vault, which came out with the Essentials books, just really, they had a really strong idea of what they wanted monsters to do in the game. These monsters are tough. That's the real true. These monsters hit so super hard compared to monsters from the earlier versions of the game. But I want to talk a little bit about monster manuals in 4th edition because we got 2 minutes here. One of the things I love about 4th edition monster books, especially the later ones, is the way that they do monster spreads. It's for example, here is the Etten, okay? Our 2-headed giant friends. But what the book does is Etten, it kind of, here's what it tells us about Ettins. They're quarrelsome, but, dumb giant creatures. And then what it does is it gives us a couple pages of Etten monsters that are all Ettins but they're all different. And they might have like 1 or 2 abilities that are similarly themed so that you're like, oh, I know I'm fighting an Etten, but this is an Etten Hunter, which is an artillery, which means it's going to have really good ranged attacks. Oh, this is an Etten Marauder. It's an elite soldier, so it's going to be really tough, high armor class, lots of hit points. Oh, here is an Etten Wrath Chanter. It's a controller. It's a leader. It's kind of a spellcaster. And it's going to be able to pump up its allies as well as mess with our abilities. So they in one monster profile, they give you kind of like all the building blocks to kind of build a bunch of Etten encounters, but without having to use the same monster, literally, Etten, over and over and over again. Instead, just in these 3 pages, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 monsters, along with some background text about the monsters themselves. So that just shows you how like dense these books are. Monster Vault is an incredible monster book. I consider it essential for 4th edition gameplay. S tier. This is a fantastic book. Fantastic. 4E is going to do well. There are books I will shit on 4E, though. 4E gets some Fs from me, so just to let you know that, by the way. Easy S. All right, we got another system here. Adventurer, Conqueror, King, System. Oh, by the way, Damien, I did see your super chat. I'll get back to that in a second. Axe by Alexander Macris with Tavis Allison is a retro clone. I think this was through a Kickstarter. It is sometimes called the Axe system, ACKS system. And it's kind of based around the old traditions of D&D, where like you start off as an adventurer, and then you become sort of a, you know, like a hero, a conqueror, a big time deal, and then you become a king. And so this book has a ton of rules in it for basically playing 1st edition D&D, for lack of a better word. But where the book kind of gets into the weeds is it has rules about building strongholds and trading mercantile modifiers. Here you got to determine the market class value of your area, and then you have to figure out what trade routes are available to you. And here's all this information about shipping cargo and how much precious merchandise is worth. And then of course there might be a demand factor that you have to apply that is going to then, it's not my favorite. Okay. I don't think it's it's basically a 1st edition retro clone. And he uses some really weird terminology in there, I guess, just to be, awkward. I like that he put in the systems at the end for sort of the second part of the adventure. But it's not my favorite book. Like, in many ways, like Swords and Wizardry, I give it a D. But, like, I appreciate the added rules. I think they're kind of fun and interesting. I think they're more academically interesting than they are probably actually interesting to play, and I don't think I would actually really like to play them out like long term. So I will give the book a C. So C. I'll give it a C. It's fine. I know. Well, I see William Brandis is in chat, but like I never picked up any of the supplements for it. I just thought it was fine. I just thought it was just another retro clone. And with like some expanded trade run information in it. That was just, that was all it was for me. So many books. All right. Forbidden Lands is up next. This is from Free League. It uses their Year Zero engine. These books are gorgeous, obviously. This is the Gamemaster guide. This is the Player's Guide, although they come in one set of books. I didn't think I would like these games initially. They occupy a very strange place. This to me is sort of a neo-modern OSR. So as opposed to the Swords and Wizardry games that we had talked about, or the Axe games, which were really just trying to replicate or maybe lightly update the existing rules of 1970s Dungeons & Dragons, this game is really trying to give you that feel of sort of that harsh exploration wilderness, but using modern, sets, using modern updates, and modern rules, and a little bit of, indie game narrative inspiration. It's pretty rules light. The character sheet, as you can see here, is pretty basic. Your characters do have certain narrative mechanics. It is a fantastic game. I think it's a beautiful system. It's not my favorite system. I think it's designed really well, and I have yet to get it to the table, and I really, really want to. I think it uses D6s, you have dice pools, and Casey, I almost always like the standard covers better than special covers. Look, any book that comes with a ribbon is doing all right in my book. I'm going to give Forbidden now. It's tough for me because I've not gotten it to the table. I will admit that I've not gotten it to the table. But my instinct is to give Forbidden Lands a B+, but it could be an A. I don't know. It bears in mind playing, but I think it is a very interesting system, and I'm definitely eager to give it a try here, hopefully sometime in the near future. So that's pretty sweet. Joe, any reason you didn't go in alphabetical order or release date? Well, I don't store my books on my bookshelf in alphabetical order, and putting them all into alphabetical order, Joe, would have taken just as long as this entire stream is going to take. Most of my books were just on my bookshelf in here's my 4 ebooks. Maybe Player's Handbook is on the left, and DMG is in the middle, and Monster Manual is on the right. And I kind of just took them out one section at a time and put them in big stacks on the table. So that is kind of what happened. So that is why. And you understand. Okay, good. Pathfinder, 2nd edition, Bestiary. Yeah. I have a rule of thumb. I don't like Bestiaries. But amongst the Bestiaries, I tend to like the first ones more. Why? Because they have monsters that we all like and know and can use. Liches, gnolls, ogres, hellhounds, hill giants, drow, demi-liches, cave bears, centaurs, ghouls, ghasts, zombies, wraiths. The monsters that you want to fight and play against when you're playing a fantasy role-playing game that has been made in the last 30 or 40 years. Bestiary delivers. I think it's a good book, actually. There's some editing issues. Some of the rules are... Plus grab is, I still think, hilarious in the book. But there's an interesting array of monsters here. They didn't try to get too stupid with their piezo monsters and add in a bunch of dumb shit that no one will ever use, or you'll put into an AP and then I'll just fucking throw it away anyways and replace it with something cool like a giant. But for the most part, I thought the book was done. I thought it was pretty good. B. I'm going to get a B. I thought it was a good book. I liked it. I think the troll art is actually kind of cool. It grew on me. I didn't like it at first, but I liked it. I like this Hydra too. You're just always going to find yourself going back to the first Bestiary. I think just time and time and time again. It's just the touchstone monsters that just come up and that just make sense. And I just like that a lot. I thought they did a really good job. So yeah, B. Frostjack, that's a great point as well, right? Those are the monsters that they're like, these need to be in the system for for us to not be embarrassed to release the system. Another 4th edition book, Heroes of the Fallen Lands. So this was the first of the Essentials books. And what Essentials was Wizards of the Coast saying, we're sorry. We know you guys don't like 4th edition, so we are going to massively backpedal. We're going to kind of create new classes, but it's still backwards compatible, guys. We've heard that line recently, right? And they basically backpedaled like a motherfucker. These characters are 4th edition compatible. I'm not going to say that they're not, but they really basically took everything that was cool about 4th edition with the at-will encounter daily utility, and they got rid of them because they bowed to the pressure and of stupid people who didn't like the game anyways. And so this is a book for people who don't like 4th edition. And guess what? The people who didn't like 4th edition didn't buy the fucking book either. So if you like 4th edition, you didn't want to play this game. I didn't like the fighter class, the Slayer. I didn't like the mage class, which was for the wizard. I thought this book was terrible. Yeah, you know, I'm going to give it a D. It's not an F. The book functions, and maybe there's some interesting feats and powers in there, but there are a lot of rules fixes. I'm going to give it a D. So 4th edition, Heroes of the Fallen Lands, D. And since they were next to each other, the companion book to that is Heroes of the Forgotten Kingdom. They had to make sure they both started with F, you know. This one, yeah, so by the way, this one was for clerics, fighters, rogues, and wizards. This one was for druids, paladins, rangers, and warlocks. And is much the same. I will say, I don't think I hated these classes as much as I hated the other classes. It's possible. Nope. Looks like I would hate these. Yeah, no, I don't like these. Okay. D. Yeah, D. I just didn't like how they changed the 4th edition system. They said these characters were compatible. I really didn't think that they were compatible. I thought they felt different. They played different. They cared about resources a different way. They just didn't fit into the ecosystem of the game in the same way, and I just didn't really like it. Anyways, so there you go. Double D's from 4th edition Essentials. Yeah, they might have been okay at heroic tier, but I don't think they were very interesting or compelling at epic. You didn't get the cool things that you used to get out of 4th edition, which is what you want out of 4th edition. Atomic Robo, the role-playing game. So this is a Fate game using the Fate core system, but this actually came out before the Fate core system, I think, that we all know and love today. I bought this at Gen Con. I never read the comic. I just liked Fate. And it's full, the guy who made the comic put all of his art in there. So it's got cool little art vignettes and little comic vignettes throughout it. And guess what? You know what? It's a Fate game. It's got some cool information. Actually, wow, I flipped right to it. So there is a section in here called Brainstorms. And this is basically about like how to run that scene, because like Atomic Robo is like scientists and they're trying to like solve problems. Like this is like, how do you run that scene where like the character is researching, where the character is like trying to put everything together. And I thought they did a really interesting job with it. And they also did the same thing with like inventing when you create something out of nothing. And so there's like a really cool process. In other words, they created rules that support what the game was trying to do. But I don't know the comic book that well. I just mostly bought it because I wanted to read the Fate rules. But it's pretty interesting. Again, it's like if you want that two-fisted science, maybe kind of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I guess, kind of flow to it, but with like, I don't know, more robots and machine guns, I guess. This game is probably okay for it, but I'm going to give it a C. It's fine. Damien says it was written by the guy who made 8-Bit Theater. So it was. Brian Clevenger. There you go. Did not know that. Interesting to know. Damien asked Star Trek. All right. Star Trek Adventures, another Modiphius game, 2d20 system, and I'm going to get some bonus time on the clock. Damien gave us a little money. This is a 2d20 system that came out right before Dune, and I think it continued. Now, I had an opportunity to read Aaron's Conan 2d20 system. Not that impressed. I also read the Fallout. Now, I'm not a Fallout fan, but I thought the game system seemed a little bit clunky. This, I think, is where 2d20 really started to come into its own. I thought they figured out a lot of things, and they made a lot of changes to this game to make it flow better. First thing I'm going to complain about this book, though. The black pages and the LCARS systems. I get it. It's Star Trek, and it's supposed to look LCARS-y. LCARS, by the way, is this system of thing. But the font and all this garbage tech, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate the layout of this book so freaking much. I don't need it to look like this. Stop, please. I don't need a dark mode book. What a waste of printing for all these black pages. Anyways, don't like that. That being said, this provides you with a really interesting way to play Star Trek. And I like the way that they do it. That you get to build a cool ship. You get to build a cool crew. It has cool systems for interacting with the parts of the ship, the away team. It has a system that you can use so that you can be your main character, but also be a secondary character. I personally don't like that. I kind of just want to play my character on the ship. It's fine. I don't need to be in every scene, and I don't need every role on the bridge to be filled by a PC. It's fine if certain people are NPCs. I'm okay with that. Like, if someone's Kirk and someone's Bones and someone's Spock, we're covered, right? They go on all the away missions, and Scotty and Chekhov, they can just be NPCs. Not everybody needs to be everybody, but this is a deep cut, a deep take on the Star Trek game system. There are a ton of books out for this, and this is the only one I own. I did have an opportunity to play this. Damien ran a game for me. I thought the adventure that we ran through was fun and interesting. I thought it had too much combat, and I would struggle to think of an instance where I would ever want or expect to see that much combat in a Star Trek game. But, you know, my understanding is that, you know, the series will, the adventures can have a lot of different outcomes. Now, there are also sick people in the head, like William Brandis, who will say that he'd be fine just playing Star Trek. He doesn't even need the adventures. He could just be like, we're playing a game of Star Trek. What are you doing? We're going to catalog a gaseous anomaly. Oh, what things is going to happen? Nothing. Nothing's going to happen. We're going to make like a bunch of checks. We're going to be on the ship. Somebody, you know, is going to go to the holodeck. Oh, is it going to malfunction? And is it going to come alive and try to attack the crew? No, we're just going to have a great time in the holodeck. And then we're going to leave. And then we're going to go back on our duty shift. And we're going to, you know, catalog some more gaseous anomalies. We're going to get really excited because we're going to find out that the particle density in this gaseous anomaly is 2.5% higher than we had previously known from our long-range scans. Wow, it's exciting. Aren't you glad you joined Starfleet? Anyways, yeah, slice of life STA. I think the system is cool as well regarding support characters, William Brandis, but I think it's just not for me. I don't know. I could see, maybe if I'm the GM, I don't care. But as a player, I just didn't like it. Yes, Star Trek New Dawn, London, is what Smith and Kaz and probably Damien want to play in Star Trek. They don't want to go on Star Trek Adventures. They just want to go on a Star Trek. You join that play by post? Oh, that'd be great. What time we got? Oh, we got time for maybe like 3 or 4 more. Here's another Traveler. I don't know that I don't know. Oh, this is Traveler D20. So this was during the era where they said everything needs to be D20. This was like the early 5th edition when look at this cover art. Look at this dog man. I hate everything about this. And this trucker guy. Oh, this is horrible. By the way, the introduction is by Mark Miller, not actually written by him. He's the guy who wrote this. Anyways, this was part of the era where they thought everything should be D20. And you know, it's a D20 system. You know, you can tell here it's got, you know, base attack bonus, fort, ref, will, feats, but it's in space, you know. I don't know that I've ever done more than just flip through this book. My guess is it's bad. There's so many things that they just stuck D20 on and said, it's good. D. Trucker and dog guy. What? You don't like furries? I mean, I leave my judgment open to the individual, but I definitely don't like that art. Dude looks like Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation. I died in character creation in this book on the way home from Origins. There we go. There we go. So it does still have some of the Traveler funds. But yeah, I'm going to agree with Damien here and say Traveler was created to not be like D&D. And, you know, feats and fort saves and base attack bonuses. It's just, you know, you're going to see as I go through the collection that, especially maybe at the time, I thought it was really, really neat. But as I've aged, I've, you know, kind of soured on a lot of the D20 games that came out because I just realized it was just a cash grab. And it probably should never have been made, or it should definitely not have been made in a D20 system. So that was definitely the case. Pathfinder, 2nd edition, Lost Omens, Travel Guide. This is a very thin Lost Omens book. It wasn't too expensive. And this book, I still have the receipt in it. This book, how much does this cost me? $35.99. Oh, nope, $39.99, but I get a 10% discount because I'm a member at Barnes & Noble. This book has no mechanical rules in it, really, I don't think at all, ever. It is just cute little maps of homes in Galarian, and it is about the cultures and food and fashion and accessories and the games of chance that they play in the world, some of the information. It is only about, like, if you're not an adventurer, but you live in Galarian, what is your life like? It is a fantastic book. I hesitate to call it S, but it is A tier for me. This is definitely my favorite Lost Omens book. I think it is fantastic. I think it is everything it should be and nothing that it's not. So I think it's great. I think this is a fun book and it's fantastic. We should 100% make those recipes on the channel for sure. 38. There we go. We'll make a spiked mint tea, maybe a Carpendium twist, an Anashani tonic from the Isle of Kortos. Pretty nice. All right. Any requests? We got time for like 2 or 3 more. I mean, I can't guarantee that I could pull anything out from the pile, but you know, like I said, there's roughly like 4E pile, 3E pile, Pathfinder pile, indie game pile. Oh, there's a 5E pile. We didn't even get to 5E at all today. We got a bunch of stuff over here. So, Joe. All right. All right. Earthdawn. 1st edition. As you can see, my book is pretty shreked up. It's got tape holding the binding together. Earthdawn is released by FASA, and it is set in the same world as their game of Shadowrun. This is a beautiful game. It was an interesting way that did not use the D20 system and came out during the 90s when D&D was, king. It has a very innovative and interesting way of combining all of the world with the classes and the characters of the abilities. I love the class system in this game. I love the magic system in this game. The cycle of magic between the horrors and the real world and the raw magic of the astral plane. The spell system is great. It is not Vancian. You create patterns in astral space that you then shape and empower with threads of magic. You weave magic into your spells, casting them again and again and again. You can even cast any spell you want, but it's dangerous because channeling magic through yourself can attract horrors. It has so many things about magic which I love, which is that magic is not easy and magic is dangerous. It's a great gift. It's like any sort of tool. It's a sharp knife. It's a great tool, but it can hurt you if you're not careful. And I love it when magic is treated with the sort of respect and reverence that I think it should be. The world is awesome. It's literally custom made for sort of Dungeons and Dragons adventuring. It is a post-apocalyptic world, but not like in a Mad Max everything is destroyed way. It's like humanity is returning to a world which has not seen humanity for many years, and there are ruins all over the world, aka dungeons. They're called cares, and you have these people who are going to go explore them. It is one of my favorite non-D&D games, and I think it is fantastic. I'm gonna say A tier. It's not S tier. It is A tier. The step system can be a little clunky, and that's what keeps me from probably giving it. But I'm gonna say A plus. A plus. Very high A plus. But I can't give it the S because there are some things that there's some wonkiness with some of the rules, interactions, and the step systems. But other than that, it is a fantastic game. I love it. What am I rolling for this? D20 plus D12 plus D8 plus D6. William Brandis says, I know you were going to demote it because of steps. Yeah. Actually, let's see if I can bring that up for the people at home. It's got to be early in the book. Oh, there it is. Look at that. So your character has a rank, and then you look up on this table what dice you actually roll. So you don't actually ever add modifiers. You just roll more dice. Like all the way, like no one's actually really rolling this high, but like at the end, it's like 2d20 plus 2d10 plus 2d8. It's like, it's just completely crazy and ridiculous. It's kind of nuts. All right. What do we got time for? Two more? I didn't see anything. Did I miss any requests in the chat? John says this game was considered a revolution when it came out, as I recall. I completely believe that, John. It was a very big departure from D&D, and I know that when I found it in the like late 90s, we were playing second edition D&D, and I found it at a used bookstore. I think that first edition had come out in 94, which is like just when I was getting into role-playing games, 92, 93. And I found Earthdawn a few years later. I was probably about 16 or 17 years old. And I remember just being blown away at how amazing the complexity and the depth is. It was pretty cool. Yeah, Quark, maybe a little Thundar. Maybe a little bit Thundar. I could see it. Maybe not as much of the hard science fiction, though. Sean, let's do 13th Age for $10 and why it is S tier. I gotta find my 13th Age books here. Picking a book that I don't see immediately out of the corner of my eye. All right. I don't know where my 13th age. Oh, okay. Wait. I found one 13th age book. So we'll have to do 13 True Ways, Sean. Hopefully that's good enough. Okay, so 13 True Ways is the expansion book. It's kind of the APG of 13th Age. There was a Kickstarter for it. 13 True Ways adds some additional classes to the game, which I think are a lot of fun. They're much more wonky and zany than some of the ones that were in the core game. But it did add to the game the Commander, which is basically the Warlord, which was awesome. It also added the Druid and Monk, which were missing from the core book, and a lot of people complained about that. It has a fantastic section of monsters, and it has some really, really, really cool, interesting ideas here for the Gamemaster's Grimoire. But of course, we're kind of using this as a proxy. 13th Age is a fantastic game, and we'll definitely give it its due, Sean, when we get there. But I thought 13 True Ways was a really, really nice expansion book. I've liked a lot of the, I think the APGs from Pathfinder 1 and 2 are both incredible books. And I thought that this was sort of an APG plus sort of a GMG in that it had some really cool new classes and some cool updates and introductions, which I thought was great, just like an APG. It has information about the world of 13th Age, which, take it or leave it. And then it's just got a ton more monsters, which is also, completely awesome. And then a bunch of magical items. Like it's literally just more of the same from the first book. And because 13th Age wasn't a big publishing book, the original release of 13th Age it's like a monster manual and a DMG and a player's handbook all in one book. And it's not as thick and close to thick as a Pathfinder 2 book. So sometimes 13th Age felt a little light. It didn't have a lot of consumables, kind of light on it. It didn't really have a lot of monsters. It was kind of light on it. Didn't really have a lot of, classes. It was missing some of the big ones that people expect to see in games like Druid and Monk and stuff like that. So 13 True Ways kind of really helped complete the set there. And I thought it was a really, really fantastic expansion book. This is a very solid A. I think it's a great book, and I think the classes in it are a lot of fun. Except for the Chaos Mage, which our buddy George played. And fuck you, George. Because this class was such a pain in the ass to run a game for. And, it was everything you'd ever want there to be. Probably do one more book here before we wrap up. A+ book and an S system. Yeah, that's probably where we're going to end up, William Brandis. It was an A book. I think 13th Age will be S, but yeah. Frostjack, is there a trend of the first big expansion of a D20 system, APG, PHP2, being really good? Is that consistent at all? Frostjack, that probably is consistent, because I think what happens with that second book is there's a lot of things that they would have loved, maybe things that they really put a lot of care and love and attention into that just could never make the first book because it's not what people expect out of the D20 game. And you're supposed to just give them the fighter and the thief and the cleric and the wizard and the ranger, and that's it. And so I think a lot of those, maybe designer favorites or little darlings of the designers end up kind of getting relegated into the second book. And I think you see that over and over again, and I thought it was, it's generally been the case that the first expansion book for me is usually a really, really good one. By the time they go to that second or third time, it starts to get a little long in the tooth, and I do think we start to lose it, because the first time it's like, oh, we had so many more ideas, we just couldn't fit them in the book. So then that's when you get your first book, right? The APG or the PHP2, and it's like, yeah. And then it's like, the corporate overmasters say, okay, well, we need another book. It's next year. We need a new book. And then they're kind of like, oh shit. Well, I kind of used all my good ideas in that other book. So now I need to make a book, and, well, I don't know. I'll just ship what I ship. Like for me, Player's Handbook 3 from 4th edition D&D is not a particularly strong book. I don't really like it at all. But all right, last one for the night. All right, Torchbearer, 1st edition. Another Luke Crane book. And this game is like Mouse Guard, which we talked about earlier. In fact, the rules between this and Mouse Guard are very, very similar. But whereas Mouse Guard is about anthropomorphic mice trying to make a difference in the world, Torchbearer is a kind of a very grim gamist simulation. It's a very grim gamist emulation of dungeon crawling BX D&D. And it does this using the sort of burning wheel light system that Mouse Guard used. Torchbearer does the same thing. And it is a very procedural game with a kind of a very old school vibe, black and white art. It uses D6s. You build a pool. You want 4s or higher to succeed. 1, 2s, 2s, and 3s are failures. You have a system for advancing in this game, like Mouse Guard, which is based off of the type of checks that you're making. If you want to get good at swords, you need to swing your swords. It uses a universal conflict system that's kind of paper, rock, scissors based, just like Mouse Guards. But you can use that conflict system for any type of conflict. It could be a capture conflict. It could be a convince conflict. Now, there are elements of Torchbearer that some people will not like. Like, for example, in Torchbearer, if you went into a convince conflict and your group lost the convince conflict, your group may have to make a concession to the GM. And the GM may tell you, you have become, you came in trying to convince the king to go to war, but you lost this convince really, really badly. And actually, the king and his advisors have now convinced you that you're right. War is not the right answer. And just like I could have killed your character if you ran out of hit points, and you have to accept that. You can't say, well, I don't think my character is dead. In Torchbearer, if you go into a conflict and lose, like a convincing, and I say, no, you're convinced. And it is your job as a player to now be convinced. It's not mind control, but that is the way that you now need to play your character. Just like if I killed your character, you would have to play your character as it being dead, which is to say not at all. So, Torchbearer has a very sort of outside the box way of handling events. Mouse Guard's the same way. Burning Wheel's the same way. But Torchbearer does it in an old school D&D way, and I fucking love it. Now, the conflict system has its flaws. It's not perfect because sometimes it's a little gamist, and it doesn't always make sense in the fiction. That is one problem I have with Torchbearer and Mouse Guard and Burning Wheel, is other games make a better attempt to sort of say, no, the fiction takes precedence. Torchbearer is kind of like, no, the game elements take precedence, and it's your job to make it fit into the fiction. And it can sometimes lead to some really strange and awkward instances. I cannot give the game an S. I have to give it like an A+. I love the game. I think it's really evocative and interesting, but I do think it has some problems with its gamist tropes that are just kind of honestly part of Luke Crane's design philosophy that kind of miss with me at times. So, that's it. I have a pretty nice pile over here. I don't know how many we went through, but I'm guessing it's like 40 or 50. We did pretty well, especially for this being the first one, and we had a lot of stuff to kind of deal with. But yeah. London, I'll say it in case he misses it. London, Gid, Galarian in Depth. London says, if you're reading chat later, we need to look at these conflicts in Torchbearer. But Damien says, sounds like the Saga. Oh, Saga Frontier was a great game. Sounds like Saga video games and FF2. The more you use weapons, the better you are at that type of weapon. Damien, that's exactly right. In fact, the way Torchbearer works is, and Musket works is, every time you use a skill, you mark whether you succeeded or you failed. And depending on your rank in the skill, you need a certain number of successes and a certain number of failures. Yes, you need failures too. And then when the moment that happens, your skill in the your rank in the skill goes up by 1 automatically. And obviously you need more successes and more failures as your rank gets higher and higher. But the idea is you need reps with your skill of you succeeding to get good at it, but you also need failures, which indicates you're pushing your ability, you're, struggling, you have to kind of fail to learn, to grow. And so Torchbearer, Mouse Guard, Burning Wheel all use that kind of system. And again, it has nothing to do with leveling. It has nothing to do with experience points. If you use a skill a lot and you use it in a way where you're going to pass and fail it, you'll eventually just get higher ranked in it. So, yeah, easy A. I agree, William Brandis. Definitely easy A. Frostjack says it's a lot of fun. Looking forward to the next one. Yeah, hey, so thank you everybody for hanging out with me. I know this was kind of a thing. We've lost about half our viewers. That's okay. But I think this is a fun option. Thank you again to everybody who supported me tonight with the super chats and the tips. That's great. Obviously, we love doing this. We do this for the patrons, but when you all can throw some money and support and tips our way, that's fantastic, because that means that this is the kind of stream that I can do instead of doing, top 5 builds for your Pathfinder 2 fighter, which would get us a lot of views. But, these type of streams don't get us a lot of views, so they rely on, viewers like you. It's just like NPR. But again, if you want to support us, please feel free to check out our Patreon. We have a couple different tiers for all different price options, and that's how you can join this community. So many of the people in the chat tonight were part of that community. And, I'm not even the leader of that community. I'm just a part of it too, where, we're all influencing each other. We're trying to get better at role-playing games. We're trying to learn more about role-playing games. And you can find that description below, patreon.com/Knights of Last Call. So, yeah. As a reminder, tomorrow, Mr. Aaron Smith, Mr. Bob Bumbarger, and myself are going to go see the Dungeons & Dragons movie. No illness pending. And then we're going to hop over to the studio. My guess is around 7 o'clock, but we'll see. 7 o'clock Eastern. And then we are going to do a live stream, and we're going to talk about the movie. We'll probably have some whiskeys, and it'll be a fun little, maybe 90-minute stream of just us hanging out casually. So if you like hanging out with us, we like hanging out with you. Maybe make sure you check us out tomorrow as well. So that's it. I'm going to wrap. We are off to a good start. I'm looking forward to doing this. This is a lot of fun. I appreciated your questions and your interest. And again, if you have any thoughts or comments or questions, leave them below, or, why don't you send me a message on the Patreon after you join up, if you haven't done so already. But thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call.
Night, everybody.